More on the story, we are now joined in the studio by political analyst Nixon Katembo. Nixon, thank you very much for joining me here in studio. Well, I've been pronouncing some name wrongly here. What was it?
It's Emmanuel Shadary.
Shadary.
Yes.
Okay, right. Who is he?
Emmanuel Shadary is the Secretary General of the ruling coalition, PPRD. And he's now the chosen one by the Kabila's coalition to run for elections. But this is a guy who was born in 1960 in a village called Kabampare in eastern DRC in a zone called Mwenga, so actually in a province of the Maniema. So he's basically someone who, in my own view, don't have a constituency as such.
Yes.
But because of the power of the incumbents, owing to the politics in Africa, you know, the incumbent in Africa always have a say.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to see how the Congolese people are going to respond to his appointment to run for the ruling coalition as a preferred candidate for the outgoing president. Now,
is Kabila leaving politics?
Clearly, you can see that Kabila is not leaving politics because he chose someone he can easily manipulate. And that was given the fact that there are many other possible contenders who could have taken over from Kabila, the likes of former Prime Minister Augustin Matata opponent, many others within the ruling coalition who have a much more political clout than Emmanuel Ramadan Shadary. But unfortunately, that's how the incumbency in Africa happened.
This man is 2 years older than me. He has already been in power for 17 years. Right? What happens to him?
Well, obviously, there are many other interests that vested interest in terms of economy. You must know that the president have much interest in telecommunication, have interest in media, he have interest in air transport. For instance, Congo Airways now is owned by him. And the latest report produced by Reuters, if you read, he owns over than 78 companies within the Congo through his family and other connected families. So you say he's 2 years older than you. I think he will concentrate on his business and obviously looking for someone who is going to protect those interests. That's why you see the likes of...
Were they acquired illegally?
Well, that is a discussion another day. Obviously, you know that he has been in power since 2001, after the death of his father. And much has happened. I mean, their political alliances, their economic alliances, their vested interests within the region, and not only the region, but also Western companies, you know, who has cooperated with him all along to allow him to create the kind of, you know, economic interest and muscles that have amassed throughout the 17 years that he has been in power.
Talking about wealth, it would appear that indeed money plays a very important role in the politics in that country because I mean, all the major contenders or aspiring, and we do not know what's the status with Moise Katumbi. I'm not so sure if he actually even registered or he was allowed to register. But you have Bemba on the other side. I mean, he's got his own bank account, which is not, you know, minute in any terms.
It is very interesting, Paul, and perhaps for our viewers, the DRC is one of the poorest countries in terms of the coefficient index produced by the World Bank and the IMF. We come second, but second last. Now, you have a country, just the mere fact of, you know, filing your candidacy, you have to pay $100,000. That tells you a lot. The DRC passport is one $190, and South African passport is about 400 rand.
Yeah.
So money indeed plays a part, but that should not be the issue. The issue we should be talking about is the vested interest within the region, the geopolitical strategic position that the country occupies, but also the international political economics drivers that, you know, dictate the politics within the DRC.
Who are those?
Well, let's go to the case of Bemba.
All right.
He has been in prison for 10 years. And you know that his going to the ICC was a political motive. There's no question about that. He had no control over his militias that was led by Felix Patasse, commanders actually to rescue him from the coup that had happened in Central African Republic. They decide to take him to the ICC, and the very same people say, there seems to be operating justice to be served towards him. But actually, on 25th of May this year, the former Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, Herman Cohen, wrote to the ICC to say, no, we believe Bemba have served his term in prison and he have a role to play in the political trajectory of the country. So therefore, the ICC should release him. He was released in June. Immediately after that, wrote. Now there are behind-the-scenes political negotiations at play. That, you know, after his release, he went to Brussels, have discussions there with, you know, diplomatic discussions and in France, and from there he went to the DRC, paused for his candidature. Then afterwards he went back again to Brussels. Yes. What does that tell you? Where? The same with Moise Katumbi. He's here in South Africa. Call on President Ramaphosa to meet with him and help with the discussion, you know, for his return, and went to Brussels again, go back here in South Africa, and he attempt to, you know, there are so many vested interests. Now, if you look at the current chosen in the name of Emmanuel Shadari, this is a person who is come from a village called Samamabila. Now, Salamabila is actually currently under the control of Banro, and Banro is a multinational mining companies that control the area in terms of the exploitation of tin and coltan and so on. Now, how do you explain, you know, this vested interest of multinational corporation, Western powers? And we have to make it clear that the Congo have never been free since independence, because you understand that, you know, the CIA got involved in the killing of Lumumba, and the recent declassified information attests to that. It's not my own discussion that I'm making in this interview, but rather open information that have been classified from the U.S. Central Investigation Intelligence Office. So those are the issues that actually the Congo have to deal with. Now you have regional players. These are the things that normally we don't talk about. For instance, the influence of Rwanda in the politics of the country, the influence of Uganda and its interest. Now, if you look at the East, for instance, where the war is happening currently, you have the region like Beni, where the massacres are happening, likes of villages like Kamango, Oich, and so on. Those are places that they say that there is an ADF. But who are at the ADF? Who is funding them? Who is arming them? I will give you one typical example for the interest of our viewers. On the 23rd of December 2017, the UN Intervention Brigade, a contingent from Tanzania, was attacked from 5 p.m. And that battle ended at around 4 a.m. in the morning. Now, which ragtag army fight from the evening and finish the war in the morning?
Yeah.
And we know that conventional war is fought during the day.
Yes.
But I will tell you, Mbo, and for the sake of our viewers, that we have only 2 armies in the region which have a night vision equipment.
Yeah.
That is Rwanda and Uganda. And all these are trained by AFRICOM agent, CIA agent. Now, currently, Rwanda has about 400 US officers training the Rwandan military and providing with the necessary logistics and so on. If you go to Uganda, you'll have the likes of Entebbe airport. There are 2 airports,
yes.
the new one and the old one. The old one is currently occupied by the military, the US servicemen, you know, using that as a launching pad for their interest in the region. So all that play into how the war happened in the DRC and how the politics happened in the DRC. Because you have to understand that Eastern Congo is effectively economically controlled by Rwanda and Uganda for their own economic interest.
Very quickly, South Africa, what is its role and its interest?
South Africa's role is a very interesting one because on the other hand it plays a building role, and on the other hand it have a vested interest in terms of investment in the economy. If you go to the DRC, you will find many South African companies
yes.
Doing business there, in mining,
yes.
in telecommunication. Vodacom is one of them. Standard Bank, based here, is one of them. So South Africa has this ambivalent role that you cannot clearly pinpoint. But I'm afraid that this is not for me to say, because we are on a national TV.
You don't want to lose your citizenship, right?
I don't want to get in trouble with the South African government, which have hosted me for quite a while.
Okay.
But they are that we need to explore.
Okay.
I think South Africa could have played a much more constructive role owing to its power,
yeah.
its economic resources, and its political influence on the region. And I hope that South Africa will do that, whereas it did under Mbeki in trying to bring the warring party together. You remember the Sun City negotiations
yes.
and the subsequent Lusaka agreement and so on. It was all led by South Africa from the time of Mandela.
Nixon, you have too much information. I don't have time. But we will definitely take these issues up. Well, that was Nixon Katembo. He's a political analyst. Let's quickly check out what the weather has in store for us.